Good morning. How are you doing? I'm going to say good morning to Akash over on Instagram. Never seen him before or her before, but good of you to join us. And Mark Whiting has just pitched up. Gary Muirhead and Dan Cullen were so far ahead of the game. Just going to check. Gary Muirhead was actually here at 5:26, which is ludicrous, and only just narrowly beat Dan Cullen, who was here at 5:58. I did toy with the idea of actually switching on the stream long before I actually went live, but I wasn't looking my best. Had to go and do my makeup and stuff. So, before we really begin today, obviously, if anyone's seen the news this morning or last night, you'll be aware of the mass shooting in Sweden. This show and myself personally have got friends in Sweden, obviously with the likes of Steel Wrist and Volvo. So my thoughts go out to anyone in Sweden this morning. Just seems... I mean, there is no place in the world for mass shootings, particularly in schools and that kind of thing. We should be far beyond that kind of thing happening. But in Sweden, in particular, none of the Nordic countries kind of deserve that. They're very, very welcoming, very, very warm people. So yeah, my thoughts are certainly with all my friends up in Sweden this morning. Going to be it have to be a short show today, as you're probably aware. I did mention it earlier in the week. I've been invited to a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams call that begins at 11 o'clock. So whatever happens, even if I'm still chatting away at 10:59, I will have to pull the plug because I've got to go and grab myself another drink and get into that. So you'll have to bear with me today. It won't be as a long extended one, but I'll try and cram in as much as I possibly can. And we have got some good stuff for you today. So let me kick things off, shall I? Without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. It is Wednesday, the 5th of February. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, Case is in for a duck. We've got some dramatic Dutch demolition for you. The Cat Payload system is a weight off your mind. See what I did there? And Liebherr goes unplugged on a deep foundation project. And plus, in my morning monologue today, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and why we need to fight the tendency to employ only those that are just like ourselves. It will make sense when we get there. Gary Muirhead says, shocking news. I've sent my best wishes to Steel Wrist family and friends in Sweden. It's the last place on earth I would have expected this to happen. Yeah. I'm not going to comment on the actual shooting itself. I'm a little surprised that the time before last I was in Sweden, there was quite a bit of talk among the locals about concerns over immigration. As I say, I have no idea whether that's connected to this, but even that, it just felt completely out of place in a place like Sweden. Sweden just seems too, the people are too nice to be doing. Yeah, I wouldn't. As I say, school shootings shouldn't be happening anywhere, but I've become numb to it happening in America, whereas here. And certainly in Sweden, shouldn't be happening. Chris Ford says, morning, all fresh start again this morning. Maybe they're right about snow later this month. It is February. February is a snowy month from my experience. So, yeah, we've got all that to look forward to. We do have the mystery machine to get onto. Good answer, Ken Hatcher. Not necessarily the one I was looking for, but I'll come back to the mystery to the question of the day in a moment. But let me show you our mystery machine right after this. Yep, no colour change today. I'm going to present it in its regular colour, but this is quite possibly an unfamiliar machine. That's all I'm going to tell you, but that is a bit of machine. I would like a make and a model. And interestingly, I've looked and I've looked and I've looked. And I've been to the website of the people that actually offer this. And as far as I can tell, this machine doesn't actually have a number. It is a name. It is a name. If you can come up with something suitable on that, I'd love to hear from you. While you're thinking about that, let me take that away and very quickly remind you of our question of the day. Yeah, our question of the day today, I think it's an interesting one. My question is this: which celebrity do you think could cut it in the rough, tough world of construction and demolition? Now, I've got 3 suggestions. None of mine are as good as Ken Hatch's, but I've got 3 suggestions. So anyone that's watched Clarkson's Farm will know that Jeremy Clarkson knows his way around a digger. So he'd be my first pick. Second pick would be Ray Winston, because he already sounds like he belongs on a site. And my third, my third would be Chris Hemsworth. The guy is an absolute beast. Want anything moved? Chris Hemsworth, or more specifically, Thor is your man. And let's face it, he already knows how to drive a hammer. What about you? What are you saying? Which celebrity do you think could cut it on site? Now, let's have a look. Where is Ken Hatch's answer? Now, Ken Hatcher is going for Amanda Holden. Would have a go on site. I think he may be looking at this in a completely different way to me, but I don't blame him. Amanda Holden. Yeah, absolutely. Amanda Holden, one of those very, very rare people that seems to improve with age, like a fine wine. Yeah. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen says, yeah, I mentioned before people came, good answer, Galvin, I'll come back to you in a second. I mentioned before I came on actually live today, I put in the chat that people seem to turn up at any time and kind of expect me to be here. And I actually said, if I did a 24-hour stream unannounced, I reckoned that if I did it, people would just pitch up, because not because of me, but because that's the kind of times that you people keep. So yeah, I wonder. I don't know if I could do a 24-hour. I mean, you'd have to allow me a lot of pee breaks. I'm a man of a certain age, and the bladder is not what it once was. But yeah, you never know. You never know. Oh dear, blimey. Even here in the UK, 15-year-old schoolboy charged with a murder. Yeah, unbelievable. Mick is here as well. Morning, all. I think it's tin hat time after Madman Trump. Last statement about the Gaza Strip. Yes. At what point should we start to worry? I mean, I'm already quite worried about Trump anyway, but at what point do we start to worry? He's already made statements about, well, renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. He wants Canada to be the 51st state. He wants Greenland, even if it has to take it by force. And now he's talking about America taking over Gaza and running it as kind of an annex or something. All of those are invasions, aren't they? Should we not be kind of worried at this point? I think we probably should. Now, going back to our question of the day, which was which actor or actress or celebrity could cut it on site? Garvin, mostly diggers. Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy is the right build, unquestionably. Dan Cullen, go for Clint Eastwood and Arnold Schwarzenegger. In actual fact, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he first arrived in America from Austria, he and one of his friends, Frank somebody or other, I can't remember the guy's surname, but another bodybuilder, they actually set up a landscaping company. So he kind of has worked on site. That name will come back to me. Chris Ford, the late John Noakes. That man had balls. Well, he did do the, was it the Nelson's column that he scaled? A little Fred Dibnerish, yeah. Dan Cullen, Deborah Meaden. Why? Why Deborah Meaden? Mick says, got to be Keir Starmer, seeing as he is working class. Can anybody else sense the sarcasm? Now, Mystery Machine. I'm inclined to let it go, although it's not absolutely correct. What do we got? Dan Cullen reckons it's an Hitachi backhoe. Kind of. He also reckons it's a Tata Hitachi Shinari excavator. 99% there, and as I say, I'm not going to quibble. It's actually called a Tata Hitachi Shinari Prime, is what that is. But Dan Cullen, you get the points. Let's have a look. There we are. I didn't think anyone would get a Hitachi backhoe loader because, frankly, I've never seen one in the wild. But he did indeed get it. Let me give Dan Cullen his 3 points. So we now have Dan Cullen on 6 points this month, Peter McKenna on 3. Congratulations, Mr. Cullen. Let me take that away. Going back to our question of the day, which celebrity would fit in on site? Mickey Flanagan wouldn't get much work done, but have plenty of laughs. Yeah, and he's got that a bit like Ray Winston. He kind of sounds like he belongs on site. Where you going, Mick? Jim Turner, Hugh Jackman, yeah, absolutely. Hugh Jackman, Mel Gibson, Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford used to be a chippy. He did. Guy Martin, I'm not sure about Vernon Kay, but Guy Martin, he has an affinity with plant. But yes, Harrison Ford. When Harrison Ford did, I'm trying to remember, was it Star Wars that he did? He did one of his big movies, and basically went back to work as a chippy. He really did, because he didn't think this old acting life was going to last. And here we are, probably 50 years later, and he's still earning a buck. Dan Cullen's going for Tata Hitachi Shinari Power 4 backhoe. It's the Prime, but you're close enough. Gary Muirhead going for the Euromac. It's not. It is one of those. Does actually look quite a nice machine, that. I think it's one of those that is sold purely to, as far as I know, purely to India, but there we are. But Dan Cullen's got the points. Congratulations, Dan. Keep those answers coming in on celebrities that you'd like to see on site. But while you're doing that, there's this. This show is an education. Maybe not for you, but it certainly is for me. Here's the thing. Who knew this? Vernon Kay is into plant. Is he? Is he? Why? I don't know. I mean, there is another one. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Joel Dommett. He does, I think he's a comedian, but he also does a bit of TV presenting. He does a bit off the back of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here and stuff. He is obviously, on TV, but his brother Ben runs a plant company. Yeah. Harrison Ford used to build film sets. He did. Peter Kay, be a barrel of laughs standing on the shovel. Yeah, absolutely. Be more worried about what sort of plant. Well, yes, I see where you're going with that. Anywho, yeah, it is time for our first film because I do need to hit that 10 or 11 o'clock deadline. Case and ducks and things like this. Looks a smart bit of kit, that. Like that. Gary Muirhead, going back to our question of the day, which celebrity could cut it on site? He reckons Pat Roach, a.k.a. Boomer from Alfida Same Pet. He was an ex-wrestler. He was. And obviously he was playing a builder, a relocated builder. Jim Turner says, Vernon Kay flies model aircraft and anything with stick goes hand in hand with plant operating. I wonder if he just has these hobbies to get him away from Tess Daly, because I think she would be quite annoying. Relatively easy on the eyes, but quite annoying. The other one that occurred to me as well would be Vinnie Jones and Ian Wright, both former footballers now, but both of whom came from site. I'm fairly sure that Ian Wright was a brickie. I'm fairly sure. I read that somewhere. Dan Cullen, there's a risk of a fuel shortage going with lack of truck drivers, as RHA has said to be prepped. Yes. Nothing is more likely to bring a fuel shortage to fruition than saying there might be a fuel shortage. There'll be queues at petrol stations later this afternoon with people filling up on the very, very off chance. Yeah, I don't know. Dan Cullen saying, great vid. Are you going to do hot or not this year? Yeah, my guess is that hot or not will hot up, pardon the pun, around about Balmer time, because a lot of companies are currently keeping their powder dry. Obviously, we've had the ADTs from Volvo, but with that one notable exception, by and large, I think most companies are sitting on their hands at the moment. So no, hot or not has not gone away, but I think it will hot up a little bit down the line. Mick says, good to see the payroll company got a bit of bird for fraud. Yeah, I saw that. What do we got there? Dan Cullen saying, I could dig to that tune all day. Yeah. I used to operate the old Case 588 and 688 ducts back in the day, and they were terrible. Never really took off. Even our case dealer here in Scotland hasn't sold one duck. Yeah, I can believe that. I've said this before, and I'm sure this is not peculiar to Case, but for years, back when I used to sort of travel up and down the country when I was with Contract Journal and Plant Managers Journal, there were pockets, and I could never understand it. There were pockets of real dominance. You go around Birmingham, every backhoe loader was a JCB. You go around Manchester, every backhoe loader was a JCB. But you get to places like there was one in particular around about Hull and that sort of way. Absolute Case stronghold. I don't know whether they had a really good local dealer, really good local salesman, but for one reason or another, they had a real stronghold. Dan says, in Ireland now, you now need a height awareness and harness to get up on your machine. Now it's in law. I find it harder and harder with these things. I don't want anyone to get hurt. But, we have spent 50, 60, 70 years getting on and off machines. Is that really the biggest thing we've got to worry about? And I know that, people do fall off machines from time to time, but yeah. Garvin at Mostly Diggers, who just said, haven't heard that at all. Dan, where are you getting your information from? We need to know. We need a source for that. We're going to be right back. We're going to the land of the clog in just a moment for some demolition.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Now, I've just mentioned the land of the clog. I think we're all aware of the association between Holland and the wooden shoe. And for years, primarily before I went there for any length of time, for years I always assumed this was like a touristy thing. Oh yes, when you go to Amsterdam, in addition to having your coffee, you go and buy yourself a pair of wooden shoes. But obviously the Dutch don't wear them. They bloody do. I went to a Dutch factory once, and I reckon more than half the workforce actually on the shop floor was sporting wooden shoes. I don't suppose they were doing that on demolition sites, which is where we're headed right now for a bit of Dutch demolition. Sorry about that. The sound went a bit weird at the end. I don't know what that was all about. Are we going to see any more show sponsors on the show to keep poor Foss company? Yeah, we are. Let me tell you a story. The biggest challenge that I face doing this is that I've got myself too far ahead of the curve. Okay. If anybody, equipment manufacturers primarily, but if anyone looks at this show, it's like, oh, they get lots of viewers, and there's clearly interaction, and the people that they're talking to, yourselves, are clearly very enthusiastic. They're here on a regular basis. We can see the numbers on YouTube, we can see the numbers on Instagram, and see the numbers on LinkedIn as well. And then I say, about being a sponsor. Yes, that sounds perfect. What do you need? We'd like a video, please. We don't have that. To the point where MB Crusher, who are currently sponsoring our Mission to Munich segment, I agreed to deal with them in October. I finally got the video through, or the first video through from them in December. And I've had a call in with them this morning because the idea was we were going to bookend it. So there'll be a short video at the beginning and a longer one, like a call to action, come and see MB Crusher at Balmer afterwards. That's how long it takes. So yes, no, I mean, we are in discussion. In actual fact, we're really in advanced discussion with 3 different sponsors at the moment, just trying to get them over the line. I mean, one of them, and in fairness, one of them is actually an insurance company, and they love everything about what we do. But when I said video, it was like, not sure we can help. And we've offered to make the video for them, and they've had to go away and think about it. It's a big thing. It's, as I say, got myself ahead of the game, which is probably not the best place to be, but we'll get there. We will get there. What was I saying about all of this? Oh, yeah, we're doing Caterpillar next. We're going to be back with the Cat Payload system right after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Yeah, it doesn't need any introduction. Caterpillar have got a payload system on board their machines, which obviously improves your accuracy and means you're not overloading or underloading, and actually not wasting too much fuel in trying to achieve your targets, because you know exactly where you are. But I'll let them tell you all about it. Yeah, Mick makes a good point, and I do have an answer to this. He says, personally speaking, too many sponsors, you then lose being open to everything and tied to showing their products. That's another thing that we need people to understand. And in fairness, most of the manufacturers do understand that, the fact that we are independent, we will say what we like. But that is also one of the reasons that we're kind of shopping on the periphery in terms of sponsors. In an ideal world, what I would like, if I could handpick some sponsors for this show, it would be a hydraulic hose company, because frankly, everyone needs them, a PPE company, because everyone needs them, an insurance company, because everyone needs them. But they wouldn't necessarily influence that which we do on the show. And again, the conversations are ongoing. We got a long way down. I'll tell you now, we got a long way down the road with Pertec at one point, about them becoming a show sponsor. And I've worked with Pertec in the past. Fantastic company. I realise people do have concerns over the cost of their hose replacements and stuff, but they're a national company, very well respected for what they do and everything else. Got right to the finish line, and then they too struggled with the video idea, and also I think they had a change of marketing manager or something, and all of a sudden we hit the buffers. So yeah, we are. When I'm not doing this, I'm out punting it around. So watch this space is what I would say. What have we got next? What do we have next? Oh, I know, we're going off to see Liebherr Unplugged. Don't often do piling in the show, but I thought, given this was Liebherr and it's a fantastic film, I thought I'd make an exception. Back after this. I do want to say good morning to Demo Works Limited. I don't know who Demo Works Limited are, but they sound like my kind of people. Demo Works Limited over on Instagram. Good morning to you. Yeah, I mentioned the fact that we're going to see Liebherr. We're going to see some piling equipment, deep foundations. As I say, not really my game, but it's what Liebherr refer to as unplugged. And frankly, if it's Liebherr, it's going to be good, isn't it?
We are in Södertälje, close to Stockholm, to build here a new lock for the canal for transfer ships from the Baltic Sea to the north of Sweden. With the LRH 200 we drill permanent parts for the structures for the project, and also temporary RD walls, deep excavations here. The biggest challenge is the soil condition, as the level of the rock is changing, and it's changing from 30 to 60 meters.
So far we have only used for DTH drilling, since the market here in Sweden is mostly aiming that technique. But of course it can be easily adjusted also to wet, dry deep soil mixing, and also for CFA piles. So far, we did not have any problems with the charging of the rig. We have several electric equipment in our fleet, and we had greater challenges with other equipment than we have actually with this rig, which is our heaviest rig so far. It also was a nice challenge and surprise to actually choose an electrically driven rig. We were not very sure about the performance, we were not very sure how we will handle the rig, but now we are very happy that we made this choice to purchase this rig.
This rig is very stable and very smooth drive in my opinion, and really easy to learn to operate it.
On the LRH 200 unplugged, I like the mast length, 24 meters annual length, pile length. We are now drilling from 300 till 800 is the maximum diameter what we have thinked for the machine, and it's also really nice and fast machine to put on the transport. 2 guys, 2 or 3 hours we are already going. So that's really big things for us when we are moving from the side to the side. I am at the moment really happy about the machine, and also that we are the first ones with my team here working with that machine.
LRH 200 is the really good drilling machine, and it's nice to work with electric rig, as we don't have to transport diesel. We have less maintenance, we just connect and work.
Right, okay, so going back to the point about harnesses for getting on and off machines, Dan Cullens has given us a bit of an update. It's law in Ireland, all operators are required to have safety at height awareness and may need to wear a harness, he says. Work at height regs apply to activities where a risk of falling and liable to cause injury. It's under the safety regs of Ireland. There you are, and it's in the group chat as well. I've just seen that pop up on my WhatsApp as well. Also, Dan says, what about a demolition company and an asbestos removal company as a sponsor? I wouldn't take their money. Not which seems a bit rich. When we started the Demolition magazine, whenever that was, 10 years ago or whatever, one of the points that I made was I didn't want demolition contractors to advertise in a magazine for demolition contractors, because why would you want to advertise your capabilities to your direct competitors? And this is the same. I mean, this show is watched primarily by those in the plant and the demolition industry. So in order for advertising to work, these people need to see a return. So in an ideal world, as I say, a hydraulic hose company would be perfect. If we're featuring a hydraulic hose company every day, and that gets into your psyche, and you have a hydraulic hose go pop, who are you going to call? Ghostbusters or Pertec or Hydroquip or UK Hose or whatever it might be. That's where the advertising and sponsorship really works. But trust me, we are working on it. Could do with a bit more money coming in at the moment, to be honest. Diane says, Keller are a great piling company. Worked with them in UK before. Yep. They are. They must be very good, or they must be certainly big, because even I've heard of them, and I know absolutely bugger all about anything to do with piling. We've got one more film to show you, which is kind of a look back as a look ahead. I've already said we've got one video from MB Crusher in part of our mission to Munich, and this is the one.
Think you can stop what we do? I doubt it. We've got the energy, we'll tell you all about it.
Now, obviously, MB Crusher is, well, I'm a big fan, but for one thing, they're Italian. I like that too. And another thing, they are an attachment manufacturer, which seems perfectly timed to go with the one that we're going to show you. This is the Italian hydraulic breaker manufacturer, ProMove. So petered out. Don't know what went wrong there, but yeah, thank you for that. Obviously, that was there looking back at 2022. I'm expecting a film just like that, but for 2025 in the very near future. Chris Ford says, I can't understand why people go on about how easy it is to drive an electric machine. Unless it's on electric motors to drive a winch or a drum, the elasti... Not sure where it goes after that. Lost the end of the message, Chris. Are you still typing? Maybe you are. Anyway, I said we're working to a tight deadline today, and we are. I've got to be out of here by 10:59 or... Yes. Mick says, short and sweet, but to the point. A bit like my wife. 4'11". She actually qualifies as a pygmy. Who knew? That is just about it for the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, do please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I'll be back tomorrow for a more reasonable length show. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I will be back immediately after this. And I've got a funny feeling that the subject matter might actually rattle a few people today. So if you fancy being rattled, stick around. Have you ever been to an Indian restaurant and had your order taken by a white waiter or waitress? If it transpired that the midwife allocated to see your wife or partner through childbirth was a man, would it give you pause? These examples aren't meant to suggest that racial and gender stereotypes work both ways. In fact, they highlight the ingrained expectations we hold about who belongs in certain roles. There is substantial evidence suggesting that people tend to hire people who are similar to themselves. It's a phenomenon known as homophily, which comes from the Greek and which translates roughly as love of the same. To put it another way, there is a documented tendency for people to associate with those who are just like themselves. People naturally gravitate towards others who share similar backgrounds, experiences, or interests. In hiring, this can lead to preferences for candidates who resemble the hiring manager or team in terms of gender, race, age, educational background, and personality. Many hiring managers prioritize cultural fit, which can sometimes be a euphemism for preferring people who are similar to the existing team. It's for this reason that Irish construction companies indirectly favour Irish workers. It's not necessarily active discrimination, but a reflection of how people tend to hire those they feel comfortable with, which often translates into hiring from the same background and the same pool of people. There's even a thing called the halo effect, whereby if a hiring manager sees a similarity between themselves and a candidate, for example, they played the same sport at college, they may unconsciously assume the candidate will be a better fit. Now, you've probably guessed where I'm going with this, but let me spell it out. In employment terms, we often say you can't be what you cannot see. But it turns out this is a double-edged sword. Not only are there precious few female, gay, transgender, or ethnic minority role models in demolition and construction, the affinity bias that we already have in the sector means that the gender, sexual, and racial imbalance will remain for the foreseeable future. Now, a 2004 study found that CVs with white-sounding names received significantly more callbacks than identical resumes with black-sounding names. In many instances, this was a subconscious process that wasn't even linked to racism. In all likelihood, that same bias exists today in the HR departments of demolition and construction companies across the land, favouring candidates called Steve and Bob over equally qualified applicants called Sarah and Belinda. And this is exactly where DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion comes into play. If hiring tends to favour those similar to us, then naturally the demographics of an industry will remain unchanged unless there's a conscious effort to broaden recruitment practices. Lots of people, not least the current resident of the White House, have had a lot to say about DEI of late, but I think that he and they are missing the point. Now, some organisations have misinterpreted DEI as a box-ticking exercise, hiring based on identity rather than merit. But DEI isn't about quotas or tokenism. It's about expanding the talent pool and ensuring that qualified candidates from all backgrounds have a fair shot. But that wasn't the intention. Neither was it the intention to choose unqualified people over qualified people, merely to achieve a prescribed gender and racial quota. No one in their right mind really believes that we're choosing black airline pilots or female brain surgeons that are less qualified than their white male counterparts just to appear suitably woke. In practice, DEI merely means broadening the potential recruitment net, to look beyond the narrow field of potential employees and to consider those that are a bit less like ourselves. Of course, there is an alternative solution that doesn't follow the DEI principles. That solution is to have female-only demolition companies, purely gay plant hire companies, and entirely black construction firms. Some might argue the solution is to form entirely segregated firms, female-only demolition crews, LGBTQ plant hire companies. But not only would that reinforce division rather than inclusion, it would also face resistance from an industry that already struggles with diversity. But unless the demolition and construction sector is willing to accept that all the best workers, supervisors, and managers are white, male, and almost scary heterosexual, I want to do that. Let me do that bit again because this is an important point. But unless the demolition and construction sector is willing to accept that not all the best workers, supervisors, and managers are white, male, and almost scarily heterosexual, something is going to have to give. As it stands today, demolition and construction companies are looking out upon a vast ocean of potential employees. but they're casting their recruitment net right in front of themselves, fishing in familiar waters, fishing time and time and time again from the same shoal. We need to cast the net wider. We need to cast the net wider. When all is said and done, it's vital that each industry recruits the best, most suitable, most experienced, most competent, and most qualified to take on these vital roles in demolition and construction. And unless we can bring ourselves to consider those that are not necessarily like us, how do we know if we're getting the best candidate or merely the most convenient one? There you are. Inspired by my broadcasting hero, John Stewart, who I was listening to the other day. That was my take on all of that. So, what do we got here? Big fingers, small keyboard. Story of my life. Hit the wrong button before I'm ready. That was Chris Ford. Jim Turner. We are tribal herd animals. We as a species come together with our own kind. Yeah, it's just a fact of life. But with me, it's not about colour, gender, sexuality, or whatever. It's about their personality and their work ethic, which is the very crux of how it should be. But you've got this kind of the reason for writing that, the reason for presenting that was we do have this self-perpetuating cycle, as far as I can see. If your demolition or construction company is all white, all male, and all heterosexual, you all like a beer, you all like the football or the rugby or the golf or the cricket or whatever it might, and you've kind of got that kind of shared thing. When the time comes to recruit, are you actually taking a step back and thinking, well, maybe a woman might be better for this, maybe an ethnic minority candidate, maybe this is a job for a disabled person. It's office-based, they haven't got to get on and off machines, which we know is a problematic thing. Maybe this is something that a disabled person could do. Or are you, as I suggested in that piece, are you just looking there? Rather than looking at a pool of potential employees that's that wide, you're looking at that wide there because they need to be like yourself. And I do believe... Listen, I do believe that there's an awful lot of misogyny, sexism, racism, whatever you want to call it within the industry. I do believe that is holding the industry back. But I think a lot of this is indirect. I really do genuinely think this is indirect. I think that idea of the halo effect, we've got something in common. Would you have something in common necessarily? If you're a white male and you're interviewing a black female, if you're interviewing somebody that's in a wheelchair or whatever, would you see that an affinity? Would you go beyond that first point of reference? And as I say, this is something that Tristan Mays brings up quite a lot whenever I speak to him. I don't want a woman crane driver. I want the best crane driver, and if that happens to be a woman, then that's absolutely fine. That is how DEI is supposed to work. It's not a case of we need a black one, we need a lesbian, we need someone in a wheelchair. That's not how it works. That's not how it's supposed to work. And I know there are suggestions that it does work otherwise, but that's not the idea. But if we took a step back, and the concern that I've got is the fact that it is self-perpetuating. If you've got all white heterosexual male workers and employers and HR people, then the chances are the next round of recruits will also be white, male, heterosexual, and it will just go on and on and on. And yes, in many instances, white, male, heterosexual might be the perfect fit, might be the absolutely perfect fit. But by being blinkered and not looking slightly over here at the Indian person, or not looking slightly over here at the female person, or over here at the gay person, you could be cutting your nose off to spite your face. That's my point. Jim Turner says, ticking boxes based on generating diversity in the workplace has been going on for years. As soon as you mention colour, race, gender, sexuality, the game is lost. So anything to do with promoting that drives a wedge between people from the very start. So banning DEI is the right thing to do. I think banning DEI. I think if DEI is a guiding principle, not a hard and fast rule, not you must employ a quota of ethnic minority, a quota of LGBTQ plus, a quota of female, a quota that doesn't work. But I think if you use the guiding principles of DEI to say, we've got this vast, as I described it, a vast ocean of potential employees, some of whom might not fit your usual bill, but who are as good, if not better, than that which you already have, should you not be looking at them? And if you keep fishing from the same shoal, using a fishing analogy, if you keep fishing for it, sooner or later you will deplete that. And let's face it, our shoal of white, male, heterosexual workers is depleted. There's not enough of them. So with that in mind, should we not be widening the net, casting the net a little bit further? Dan Cullen says, in all fairness, a lot of Irish companies are now hire Romanians and Indian Asian workers as they're cheaper than local guys and Irishmen as one partial reason of lower rates. It's true. It is true. Listen, I'm not saying this is a universal truth, but I do believe, and be honest, you're right what you say about Romanians, but how many of those Romanians are on the books and how many are through agencies or they're self-employed? And also... I realize the Indian Asian workers I'll accept, but you might note that Romanians are white and probably male and likely to be heterosexual as well. It's not really widening the net, is it? Mick says, what should be and what is are two very different things. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? Demo is rooted in the old ways, not through evolving with new machines, but in the old ways in the workforce. It's a fact. I don't care who says I'm wrong. 90% of what went on when I started still goes on now. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But we do live in a changed world. I mean, I've got 9 minutes. I mentioned this with, and I realised it was a bit of a throwaway and a bit of a jokey thing, which celebrity could cut it on site? And you notice that with the exception of, I think Dan Cullen went for Deborah Meaden for reasons I don't fully understand, and Ken Hatcher went for Amanda Holden for reasons which I fully understand. We all went for male. In fact, we all went for straight white male. And I promise I didn't do that deliberately, but does that not prove the point? No, I do think somebody came up with Helen Skelton, who I think was ex-BBC, ex-Blue Peter rather. I can't remember who that was. May have been Jim. But by and large, we played exactly to the stereotype. Who could work on site? Ideally, a big, white, burly, heterosexual male. Isn't that weird? And I promise you, I didn't build that as a trap. That's just the way it played out. Dan Cullen says, I see the work ethics of Gen Z as declining in comparison to older generations. With inflation, people want higher rates, but don't understand the cost of materials and plants too. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other argument there, but you're absolutely right. But here's the thing, and I'm going to pick up on something Dan said there. He's talking about Gen Z, okay? We've got predominantly men, falling off the end of the employment conveyor belt through retirement, loss of grandfather rights, and so on. So you've got those going, and we need more people coming in. What if we're aiming for white, male, heterosexual Gen Zers to replace them? As Dan has rightly said, question marks about their work ethic, also question marks about their commitment and their dedication and their determination and their grit. Does that not mean that we have to widen the net to consider more people? Jim Turner says you widen the net by going to schools and recruiting apprentices through giving them tasks and picking the ones with the best aptitude and enthusiasm for the job, which... If you took a year, the high school I went to, there were 4 classes of 30 in my year, so that's 120 people, male and female. And if you were to put them through that course, And it turned out that the top 5 candidates were black, white, yellow, in a wheelchair, gay. No hardship, is it? Mick says, straight white male, okay, but who knows what hides in the cupboard? Well, quite. There are some very strange people out there, which is one of the reasons that I work with my door locked. It's not true. The door's not locked at all. Just a thought. I wonder what would have been said, and would the outcome be shorter if the 4 was women? Don't know. As I say, I'm just throwing that out there as a conversation piece. As far as I'm concerned, why? And I do go fishing. Rather than fishing in that little bit of the pond, the river, the ocean, fish in all of it, because I'll see it through. If you fish in this little bit here, you might catch yourself a dab or a flounder, both of which are very, very good to eat. But if you open it up a bit and you fish a little bit wider, you might just catch a mackerel or a cod, which is even better to eat. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, people, I need to make myself a cup of tea because I'm due on another call in about 5 minutes. So I'm going to love you and leave you. Thank you for all your input. I will be back tomorrow, a little more relaxed on timings. Until then, everybody, look after yourselves. I'll see you on the morrow. Take it easy.